Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Profiting with Nonprofits. This week, I'm sitting down with my good buddy, Rick Toone, who's all the way out in Mexico. Mexico, man, he's living his best life out there in Mexico. Rick has worked in television, film production, and all sorts of other fun creative mediums over his years. And now he's hanging out in Mexico, just doing his thing, living on the beach, still working in nonprofits. He's actually working with a really cool nonprofit out in Mexico. It's been around for over 12 years, doing some really, really good work, helping children within the school with get more resources and more things they need out in the schools over there. And he's been using his knowledge of creative and other fun and marketing to help really enhance them. So we're going to sit down with Rick today and talk a little bit more about who he is, what he's all about, and and all sorts of cool nonprofit marketing stuff. And I just want to always mention this show is sponsored by Catch-22 Nonprofit. Our agency is a full service marketing agency that works with nonprofit organizations to help you nail it, scale, and own it when it comes to your Google grants, your Microsoft grants, and your email marketing and other forms of marketing to help you really take it to the next level. So that was a little push for me there, but now we're going to sit down and talk to Rick. So what's good, bro? What's good?
Hey, not a whole lot, everything. Life is great. We went to a birthday party for a guy who turned 74 last night, and they had a mariachi band come play, stood on the street for an hour and a half, played nonstop with 8-piece band and a singer.
That's awesome.
And that's just another night in Playa del Carmen.
That's awesome. That is super duper awesome. So, I mean, what's your story and how did you end up in Playa?
My story started a long time ago. I went to college, believe it or not, for theater of all things. Who goes to college for theater? Well, kind of silly, but I knew I had to get out of the factory work mentality where I was raised in Southern Virginia. So I went to college, got a degree in theater, which degrees, whatever. But I did meet people there that introduced me to other people that I can directly trace my whole career path to one particular guy and how it changed everything. And the dominoes kept falling down. So right out of college, I went to Baltimore and I did rock and roll lighting for a couple of years. I did President Reagan's inauguration. I was with Houston's first lighting designer. I moved to Los Angeles, couldn't get work doing lighting. So I fell into the film business, did that for 20 some years, worked with the A-list of Hollywood, did over 50 Super Bowl commercials, Emmy nominated, bunch of stuff. And then I ended up moving back to the East Coast and created interactive children's books before the iPod came out. We were doing them on the Palm Pilot, if you remember those.
Yeah.
And so in Los Angeles, I did mostly TV commercials. So I learned a lot about the whole marketing thing from, all the Ford commercials, Applebee's, everything else. I sat in the meetings with all the agency people to do this. I was an art director out there and a prop master. But then when I started doing my own thing, this interactive thing, Twitter came out, Facebook came out. So we started moms were the ones with the kids for these books. So we really started doing the marketing piece there. And that's when I really learned the ins and outs of digital marketing. And so for the last 15 years, that's really what I've been focusing on, but bringing all of the film knowledge into that, because copywriting is no different than a film script, than a script for something a lot of times. You're still doing the same thing, trying to create the same call to action, the same information, etc. It's just the visuals are so much easier to tell the story with.
That's pretty cool. I mean, you said something how copywriting is no different than writing a film script. And when it comes to the marketing side of things, and I always say this to people, whether it's for profits or nonprofits, doesn't matter what the industry is, it's the same principles of marketing, just a different variable. And you just have to swap out the variables and what you're looking to achieve. And there you go. Did you ever find that when you were dealing with, now since you transitioned into working with this nonprofit and other nonprofits, you ever find that how it's really the same thing?
It's the same thing. And what I tell them all the time, I did a lot of comedians, a lot of comedy stuff on HBO, Showtime, and those things. I did Ray Romano's first special. I did Kathy Griffin's first, Louis C.K.'s first. So I was there when those people were starting out. and watching how they worked then and agonizing over the words that they were going to say, where they were going to look, how many steps they took across the stage, where they pointed their finger. It's all about design. So if you watch good comedians, they are targeting their market all the time. They're not just off the cuff making up jokes. It's a very specific show that they're doing. And they are also copyrighted. They are explaining to the audience the setup, the hook, the punchline, the follow-up. Like every joke gets 3 laughs. You get the giggle in the beginning, you get the ha 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 right before the big punchline, then you get the big laugh. And if you're lucky, you get a little chuckle afterwards. So it's all set up.
That's so interesting. I never would have thought about that. That there's a marketing funnel within stand-up comedy.
Yeah, if you start watching comedy things now, you'll start seeing that and it happens over and over because I do like 8-10 funnels within a set. But they're
so
gearing it up for you.
That is so interesting. And then they get you hooked, and then you come back to see their next show, and you and you buy the pay-per-view special, and you do all this other interesting. That is so cool.
But they also, in the process of all that, they're doing the upsell and the downsell within their jokes of, the easy joke, they try it. If it doesn't work, then they go to a different joke and try that one to see which audience it is. So an audience in St. Louis is different than an audience in Houston. So you got to know your secondary joke, because they have a primary joke and a secondary joke. And the secondary joke is either a up level or a down level joke, depending on the audience.
That's so interesting. It's all about knowing your customer. It's all about knowing who you're dealing with. That's, I find, when you're dealing with in marketing, people don't realize this. People don't realize that there's so much knowledge and so much depth to understanding who your customers are. Again, whether it's for profit or nonprofit. And that's why creating good quality content that's going to resonate with the right people. I just saw a post on LinkedIn. Someone was saying how, social media marketers, understand this, but the businesses that hire us don't, that each platform, the content for Twitter is different than content for Instagram, which is different than content. Of course. I mean, I've been saying this for years, is that each platform has its own voice and has its own way of connecting with the audience. And if you're just blanketing that content, you're just throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks, you're going to miss like 90% of the audience. And
sometimes your audience isn't where you think they are, where you want them to be, because that's where you want to be.
Right.
You gotta look at the data to see who's going to be where. I mean, I come from this art background, this, we can build anything background. Let's make this funny background. But the reality is, stuff that we do now is so much of it is data driven.
Oh yeah.
100%. What does the data take? Who's opening the emails? For example, so we're here in Mexico. Most of our donors are in the US. Mm-hmm. We find that when the high season, which is ending now, but people come down for the winter, so from November through April, it's really busy here. We have a lot of activity. During the summer months and the early part of the fall, our emails don't get opened. We don't get donations. We're out of sight, out of mind, even though it's all on the internet, it's a connected world, but when they're not here, they're not thinking about here. And that was something that no one realized until we started looking at the data of, over a year of what do they do? How are they doing?
That's so interesting. I remember when I first met you, we talked about this, how that statistic in that situation was that when everybody's down in Mexico, they're all involved with you and they're giving you money, they're hanging out, and they're, but once they leave, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to hear from you. And it's interesting. Do you find that a lot of nonprofits are now switching to more data centric things and looking more at their data, or they're still stuck in their old school ways of, like, hey, why isn't anybody opening our emails? Let's do more stuff that's not working, kind of thing.
Yeah, I would hope that everybody is looking at their data at this point in life. We've been doing this long enough now. This internet marketing thing is not new.
No.
And so everybody should be paying it. They should, but finding what data works for you is a whole different story. So what works for us, because we're an educational foundation,
right?
It costs money for kids to go to high school in Mexico. Grades 9, 10, 10, 11, and 12 have a cost to them. And a lot of these kids, they don't have electricity. 25% of our kids don't have electricity to their house. So they don't have the internet at home. They don't have computers. Most of them don't have tablets. They're doing their math and writing essays on their parents' cell phones.
Wow.
So we provide data for them. But we have to look at who are we targeting is people that are interested in education and in making this community a better place, because if the kids want to work in a hotel, they need to know how to speak English. They want to work in the front part of the hotel. They need to know English. English isn't mandatory. School isn't mandatory here.
Right.
So we're looking at promising students. And so when we started using the word promising students over and over, and that children just want to realize their dreams of graduating high school, because that's not common. Less than 50% people graduate high school. And so when we started using those kind of words and talking about, you can't borrow money to go to college here. And so then we started talking about the fortunate people who are our donors. You know, if you were fortunate to be able to borrow money to go to college, you had it made. Whereas these kids don't have that option. So we tell that story. And we also tell the story of the students. We tell a lot of stories of students because of my affiliate background. It's really easy for us to do that. But we found that really gets the heartstrings going, because now people are like, wait, school's not free. Well, I mean, all school, you got to buy books and stuff, but these kids have to buy uniforms. Data. You don't think the data should be a school thing, but in the US, everybody has data, right? Here, that's not true.
That's so interesting, because again, it's all about that storytelling. You said it yourself, like with utilizing your video background is creating these compelling stories that are going to bring people in and pull at their heartstrings. And then you see how analyzing the numbers and analyzing the information and what people are responding to and how they're responding. That way, I actually saw an interesting post again on LinkedIn and on Facebook as well about how the way people are running ads nowadays, it's all data focused. It's less about the A/B testing and less about, seeing, this is working. Let's test two different ad sets and compete against each other. It's all about the data. I mean, especially now how Google has their AI working within the campaigns. Facebook also, you're able to cut out that A/B testing and see really what's working, and then turn off what's not working and scale up what is. And so it's the same thing what you're saying. You always have to be focusing now on the numbers, because otherwise you're not going to be able to create good stories that are going to be able to resonate. Because if you're sending out the same garbage to people that they're not paying attention to, then of course, like, why would you do that?
Yeah, we just did a couple of posts on Facebook. We had somebody come down and do a give back event. We get to do a lot of those here.
Yeah.
And they built 20 bicycles as part of a team building event, and they took them in and we donated them to 20 students. Well, bicycles, who cares, nice. Right? These are not like super duper bikes. But you know what? There's no school buses here.
Right.
That they have to rely on public transportation. Often these kids live in the villages, and they don't have the first 3 miles. There isn't a road that a bus or a collectivo or public transportation of any kind is going to go on. So by giving them a bike, it helps ensure that they'll actually go to school. A nonprofit is keeping kids in school. That's the name of it.
But see, that's what the whole thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like that's what's the crazy. Again, it's all about how you frame everything and how you build out that bigger picture. Because to somebody like me or you, a bike is a bike. Okay, great, you gave the guy a bike. But when you like expand that and like see how much depth that story has about this bike, we gave Julio a bike, and now he's able to go to school, and now he's able to finish his studies, and now he's able to go to college, and now he's going to become a doc. Like your bike that you gave is going 10 times farther. Why don't you make another donation?
Right. That's exactly what we do with all of these things. Instead of just, well, we gave kids bikes today. I'm always, when I came in, I've been here about a year and a half now. And when I came in, I said, it's not the first question. It's not the second question. It's the third and fourth level questions that you start asking. And that's where it gets interesting. And that's where it's unique. And that's what people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you ask, they're like, what does that bike really do? That bike changes a family, because you're right. Julio goes and gets a degree in accounting, works with his dad and his granddad in the auto repair shop, but not as a mechanic, but as the accountant. And he sees how to save money by ordering certain parts, streamlining the business. This is a very real situation. It sounds so basic to a lot of us.
Right.
But it happens all over the world. We're not unique in this particular region of Mexico. This happening. This is a worldwide problem.
For sure. But these are like very good marketing principles that you can apply, that nonprofits should be applying. And I'm sure you've seen this over years working with organizations and businesses, that people just don't think about that level, that next level of questioning and storytelling and framing. They're very the people, I notice this a lot with organizations, one, because they're strapped for people, resources and people, but they're and money to be able to do this right, but they're very linear in terms of what they're doing and how they're conveying their message. And it kills you, because if you're not taking that next step to build out the bigger picture, you're not adding more depth to it, then you're missing out on so much opportunity to be bigger than you are. And it's a matter of just taking that time.
So many times, and I agree with you, so many times in organizations, it's the forest and the trees. The people who started it have big hearts. They want to help.
Mm-hmm.
They've never had a real, this organization has never had a real marketing person. They've been in business for 12 years. And a year and a half ago, I said, why don't you, could you help us with that? I mean, it started kind of that way. And the reality is they just knew to ask people to donate, and they would have money and they could keep kids in school. That was as far as it went. They were strapped, overworked, underpaid, not enough people, classic organization problems. So now I've got a social media manager, I got an Instagram person, I got a web person, I got somebody who's writing stuff for the blog, who's an SEO specialist, and these are all contract players that come in. They're not full-time, they're not sucking up all the money, but we're getting so much better results by getting the specialized people that are following a path of telling the stories, and not just, here's what we did, here's what we did, here's what we did.
And that's what I always tell organizations. It's not about telling people what you did or what you're doing. It's about showing them and getting people to live vicariously through your organization without having stepped foot inside the office, or in the ambulance, or in the field, or wherever, or in the ocean, whatever you do. It's all about creating that bigger picture and that situation, so that they can your donors live vicariously through you, through the organization, without actually having to lift a finger. Yeah. And it's crazy.
But they want to see the results of what their donation is. So we do these stories, these video stories of students that have these dreams, and then we talk about what they're doing. And because we have 100 kids in high school right now, 27 kids in university, and I believe it's about 25 kids that have graduated university now.
That's awesome.
And so we have some stories to tell. I also we just had our big gala back in February, and I write all the speeches for everybody. Any kind of presentation anywhere, I write the speeches, because I'm keeping them focused on the main messaging topics. And I wrote for the founder, at one point she says that we're not just transactional, we're transformational.
Yes.
And that's such a cliche to use, but we are the bridge. We collect money from here and pass it to the kids here. So we really are. It's always been a very transactional thing. But now I'm saying, you guys, we're changing lives. We're changing families' lives. We're changing everything. That's not a transaction. That's a transformation.
Yes, you said it sounds cliche, but that's the way things are going in the nonprofit world, in terms of the marketing, in terms of the storytelling and the branding and everything. It's about transformational. It's not about just transactional anymore, because everybody's into social giving and social proof. And if you're not showing people what you're doing with their money, then not one, they're not going to give you any more money, but two, it's just not going to play out how you want it to play out. It's all social giving and social proof.
Yeah, they lose interest. So we have a thing here called the English Conversation Club. It happens on Tuesdays in Playa and on Thursdays in Tulum. And what we do is we have anywhere from 6 to 10 volunteers. We van them to a school, and they just speak English to the kids in high school. No curriculum, nothing special. You just go. Well, it is a great feeder program. It's easy for somebody to do. It's 2 hours of their time. They usually go with a friend. And once they go and see these kids once, they're hooked.
That's awesome.
And now we've got them. It's just a great intro into an organization of what we do.
It's a low entry offer. It's a low. It's part of the funnel. It's a low entry offer, and then once they're hooked, then you'd be like, hey, you want to make a donation? And like, sure.
And then the next step we do a backpack program, because little kids need backpacks. They don't have school supplies. $25 gives a kid everything they need for a whole year. So the next thing is to either help us with the backpack supplies, packing them, or putting them together, or donating for a backpack, because everybody understands that, right? Mm-hmm. So again, that's an easy, low entry, can be hands-on. And then we move them into the scholarship for high school and then the scholarship for university. So we're moving them through.
Within your funnel, I mean, I have to say, this is a fantastic funnel, like a physical product, like an actual physical on the ground funnel. Like, again, going back to what you said about the comedy, everything's a funnel. God, geez, everything's a funnel. But like, how, like from that low end, from that initial offering of whether it's the English speaking or whatever, the backpack thing, how many of those people do you find convert into larger and recurring donors?
It's not as many as I would like, but what they do become, and we can't measure yet, is they become advocates. They become the mouthpiece for us. They become the ones talking about what an amazing time they had, or this is really awesome, or did you know? So the word spreads around town. The organization has an amazing reputation in town.
That's awesome.
Everybody in the organization is well respected in the community also. So it helps a lot to have them, but it's because we do the good work and people speak favorably of us all the time.
That's awesome. So again, I guess it is social proof, because ultimately it's bringing it they're going out there and spreading the word about you. You might not necessarily see a tangible ROI right away, but you're getting the word out there and you're growing and scaling. That's a really awesome funnel. And I feel like a lot of organizations could adopt this method. And I'm curious to know how many organizations are actually adopting this method, because it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think it helps to have the right people. I think it also helps to have the right type of product. Curing cancer is a different kind of product, if you will.
For sure.
Than what we're doing. But there's so many other things that fall right into this category of we do the English Conversation Club, which is an experience. Packing the backpacks is an experience. So we're trying to initially give the donors experiences and meeting the students that we have first, and then they're sold on the bigger idea.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, giving people an experience and having them feel it and really actualize what they're doing, and then hitting them up. That's fantastic. That's really, and it's fun, because you, with all your background in art and film and digital marketing, it really, you definitely seem like you've changed the way things are working with this organization and how they measure their success.
Well, we have. I look at everything is not how do we get it done? It's who's going to do it. I'm big on the whoing. Who does things. Everything to me is about casting. And that also sounds like a cliche, but last year's gala, I had a lot to do with the gala. This year we brought in a professional and I had less to do with it. But last year I had the tall guy at the elevator who everybody in town knows to help people get upstairs to the rooftop. He's the big friendly guy. Everybody knows him. He can push. Hey, you guys, come on over here. Yep. Here's the button. Just push. Go up there. They'll have a great time. That's all he said. But that friendly face greeted him right there on the spot. That's that first touch. When they got off the elevator, we had the smiley, happy people. Hey, what's your name? Okay, great. Hey, you're at table number 6. Oh, yeah, this is great. And they walk them over to the table. And so we cast everybody as an experience the whole way through. And this year we had marimbas playing on the corner. Our hotel was here when we did it. And half a block away, we had marimba players. So if you were a block away, you could hear the sound of the marimbas playing. And then you see the flag, and then you know exactly where you're going. And that sets the mood. So my feeling is
so genius. It takes that one dimension of digital marketing and brings it into a 3-dimensional space. And
Yeah.
it's all these principles and thoughts that we as digital marketers do. You took that from online to offline, and like, my mind is just blown. Jeez.
Everything's
Like
a show. Everything's an ad. Everything is an offer. Everything is. We're always being bombarded. So how do I, like in a gala, when from the time the people leave the house to the time they get back home, they're going to the KISS gala, right? I can't control anything they do from their house to the venue or from the venue back to their house, but everything within that venue is under our control. And we need to make sure they have the best experience they can so that they talk about it for the next 2 weeks to everybody that didn't go.
that
So
that that yeah, it's like retargeting. It's like after they leave, like then you're retargeting them because they're talking about it to people, and then they come back to you, and then they bring more people to you. I swear, dude, this method is like genius. And I wonder how many other organizations are adapting this or doing this. But then again, you know what you've proven here is that even if you don't have that much money to play with, and this is always the biggest problem with organizations, right? Money. Everyone wants money. That's why whenever I ask somebody, so what are your goals? We want more money. It's like, thank you. Everybody wants more money. But like, you're showing that even if you don't have like $1 million budget, which I don't know I'm assuming you don't have $1 million budget.
Not yet.
Not yet. But even if you don't have that $1 million budget, you can still be creative and be able to give people that experience that's going to enhance the way that they look and perceive you and do things with you, both online and offline. And I think that's like the biggest issue that organizations have is like, how do we do anything if we don't have any money? Well, think a little bit outside the box and then figure out the best way to do that. And you've just proven that.
But people want an experience. All of us want an experience. How did I end up here? I moved here. I love living here. The Caribbean Sea is 300 meters that away. I mean, I absolutely love living here. And I had no intention of moving to Mexico 6 years ago. That was not part of my master plan of life. And I've been here 5 years now. And it just sort of, it came up, it happened. We said yes. And life couldn't be better.
You got some cool people down there. You got Arnie over there with you as well, right?
Oh, no, we got Arnie, we got Carla, we got a whole bunch of people that are here that, in the whole internet marketing world.
They're all hanging out in Mexico.
Well, it used to be, when we first moved here, it was all the nomads came through town and they would be here for 3 months and then they would go to Medellin because that's the next step along the way, or they go to Bali. But now, since COVID, a lot of people, and they've opened it up. It's really easy to get residency here, temporary residency here. So a lot of people just show up here and just stay. They're just not leaving now. But it's also it's more remote workers than the nomads. But it's a serious contingent of people here that are doing a lot of good work. There's a lot of business here. This town has exploded. There's a lot of local businesses that really don't donate, which is part of what we're trying to crack now.
Right.
Is trying to get the local market more involved. But it's just such a great area. We got great restaurants. I mean, there's Cenotes a mile out of town. Tulum is 45 minutes away. It's just airport's an hour. It's just an easy place to live. So a lot of people are finding it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you decided to come on my show this week. And really, the bridging the online and the offline is huge. And this is something that I'm going to take away from this, and I'm going to start implementing this with people. I'm going to discuss this with people because, like, if you have to stop and think about it for a minute. But yes, this is something that can be done. And again, you don't have to have $1 million budget to do these type of things, but you want to give people the best experience they can possibly have so they continuously remember who you are, what you're all about, and how they can stay involved with you. So like I said, this was fantastic. I'm so happy you came on, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day out in Mexico, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's great. Anytime. It's I absolutely love what I do because I see the results in the students, which really does your heart good to see that. It's more than just about, doing a job.
Right.
But they give me a lot of freedom to do things that I've done in the past that I can see from the entertainment background, from the different backgrounds that I have, I'm allowed to put a lot of stuff together, and we see results from it.
But it must
And at
be
the end of the
it must
day,
be good though, like to just like, you know, you worked your entire life in the entertainment industry and you've seen like the upsides and the downsides, and then you come to this and you're just like, it's a like breath of fresh air because you're taking your knowledge and your skills and you're doing something really wholesome and good with it.
yeah. And for me, it's not hard, you know. But I have 1,000 ideas an hour. If we're in a conversation, you want to, what? Oh, why don't you just do this? Because I've already figured out if it can be done or not, you know. And part of it is, you know, doing TV commercials for so long. Some days you have a $300,000 budget, and some days you have a $30,000 budget. And so you got to figure out what's really important that's going to get the result. So I spent 20 years doing that. So inherently, now before I offer a suggestion to them for something, I know that we can accomplish it. I know it can work. I know that we can make it with what we have to do it with. And that's a big advantage I think that I have that a lot of people don't have, is they don't necessarily have that experience.
That's pretty solid. That's pretty solid,
But
man.
But it is a lot of fun, I gotta tell you. You gotta work.
Yeah, no, for sure. Listen,
You know?
I totally feel you. But that's pretty solid though, that you what you just said is that you took your years of experience in TV commercials based on budgeting and seeing what works. But it's true about marketing. It's like you want less distraction, more action. You want to be able to figure out how you can get the most direct response from something within the shortest amount of time. And so if you have like $30,000 to spend versus $300,000 to spend, you're going to really work to figure out what those pieces are, what is going to make the most impact within the shortest amount of time. Way to go. Well, dude, this was fun. I'm so happy we did this. And I'm looking forward to sharing this to the world. And I'm going to post Rick's information. If anybody'd like to get in touch with Rick or learn more about the organization, I'm going to post Rick's information in the show notes. You feel free to reach out to him. He's usually on WhatsApp. That's how we talked. Originally we were on Facebook, but you don't hang out so much on Facebook or LinkedIn. So I will post all his information anyways. So if anybody would like to reach out to Rick, get some more information, insight out of him, he's a wealth of knowledge. I can say that because we've had many good conversations outside of this one. So yeah, thanks so much, dude.
Yeah. You quite welcome. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
I look forward to talking to you again soon.
I can't wait.